I've been recently doing this series where I pick one small piece of the Node.js platform or the JavaScript platform and then just pick it apart. A very low level fundamental stuff. I talked about fetch, I talked about HTTP module, and today I'm going to talk about the HTTP server listening in Node.js and then just pick it apart. What is it doing actually, right? How about we actually just jump into it, guys? I'm gonna create a brand new JavaScript file. Let's call it listen.js, and we'll just go ahead and create a new HTTP variable here. We're gonna require the HTTP server, and we'll create an HTTP server object by calling http.createServer and nothing more. Just that. Okay, and we're used to really just calling listen and providing a port, but I want to explore what other options we have here and what do they mean really. And when we actually provide a port, we're going to listen on that port, obviously, and we're going to tell us that. But I don't know if many of you know that even the port, there is a question mark next to it, which means it's actually optional. So technically this works. And the first question that you might have is, Hussein, if it's going to listen, where is it going to listen to? Which port? Well, everything is an event almost in Node.js, so you can effectively have an on listening, and look at the Visual Studio Code. It actually auto completes for you, and it tells you, hey, on listening, call this function, right? This is very similar to when you provide the callback in the listen argument. But what we're going to do here is effectively, hey, when I am listening, you can just literally just print, hey, listening on port. And here's the beauty, you can get the port from the HTTP server, and we need to be really careful here, because this will only be called when the listen event is successful. And basically, if you don't provide a port, or you provided 0 as a value for the port, since 0 is not a valid port, it will pick a random port and listen to it. And here's how you get that port, that random port that has been picked for you. And you can do HTTP server. I just found out this really recently, to be honest, while I was exploring and making the other video. You can do HTTP server.address, and address is a function, right? A synchronous function that you can call, and it's going to give you a lot of useful information. Part of them is a port. And if I do that now, and let's just because since this is a really useless app, so let's add an actual event here on request, right? If someone make any request to us, I wonder if you can do an end and write something. I'm not quite sure. Let's try that. Let's just do okay, and let's just do run. Well, let's go ahead and run. And you can see that we were picked the port 57565. That means if I go to a browser and type in HTTP localhost, you can see that our server is beautifully running. And you can do tricks like that in your app. Says like, oh no, localhost, and then you can put the port here, and what's his name, Visual Studio Code will actually give you almost a link when you can do command click, and it will open for you, right? It will definitely pick a different port. This is useful specifically if you if you don't know the environment you're running in and you have no idea what ports are going to be reserved, right, and other apps are listening to, you can use this approach. But this is not really the fascinating part to me. What is really interesting here is there's another parameter here, is like on. I'm going to type in this. Like, what are we listening to is the other question. That is actually the most dangerous question here sometimes. There's an address, right? You might say, Hussein, you're listening on your machine. Of course you can listen on your address. You know your address. Not really. It's not as clean cut and dry, really. I wanted to show you this. Most of you, some of you might know, but this colon is the short handwriting for the IPv6. Let's write it here. Colon is equal to 000 in IPv4. This is the IPv6, and I believe this is an invalid. It's called, I think, an unspecified address, and which means really it's an invalid address. You cannot use this physically on the network, but software can. And usually what it means every interface. So like if I had a Wi-Fi and I have a 5G network and I have another public LAN Ethernet, my code by default listens to all of them. And you really need to be very critical and very, very careful with this. So technically I am running it through localhost, but so if I open this again and I opened a new one and I typed HusseinMac.local, this is my DNS, which technically points to my IP address, right? That also works. My IP address is this. That works. So I was able to go through localhost, I was able to go through my DNS hostname, and I was able to go through my IPv4, and I'm pretty sure if I have it in IPv6 I can do that too. I just couldn't figure out how to actually paste the IPv6 here and then have it work from the browser. So that means that if I have my phone, and I'm going to show you right now, if I type in on my phone here HusseinMac.local colon 575.89, that works from my phone on the same network. You might say, Hussein, duh. So yeah, we've shown that it works on my phone, it works everywhere, but just the defaults is listening in everywhere. And I've seen some apps incorrectly do that. And the danger of this is, if your app is supposed to be like an administrative only, that is only should be accessible from localhost and not any other interfaces, you really should only access it from the same machine. Then you only want to listen on the loopback or certain IP addresses, right? If you accidentally deployed your Node.js app, and that goes for any application really, this is almost always the default. If you accidentally deploy this on the cloud, on something that has a public IP address, then anyone scanning the internet for this open port, they will be able to access to you. Why do you think we have all these data leaks that is happening with Elasticsearch and MongoDB? Because people just listen on all interfaces, even though they don't necessarily want to do that. You only want to listen to the interfaces that you absolutely are only needing to connect to. Like in a development environment, if you're the only one here, you don't want anyone in in the vicinity, in the same network, be able to access your stuff, the app that you just wrote, because it could be dangerous. You might say, I don't care, Hussein. And that's fine. Just understanding this is actually, I think it's important. All right, if I say again 0 for the port, and you can specify the host name, it says, hey, I really only interested in 127.0.0.1. I only want to be listening on the loopback, and not any loopback. I want to listen on the IPv4 loopback, which is 127.0.0.1. That means, let's run again. Boom. This works because it's a local host. This also works. But this, right? What's my IP address again? 192.168.254.10 doesn't work. When your client, which is the browser, tried to establish a TCP connection to this IP address, the operating systems pass that SYN, try to pass this SYN to this interface, and says, wait a second, nobody's listening on this port on this particular IP address, right? That's why the connection was refused. You didn't get any SYN ACK as a result. And sometimes this is a good thing. If you don't want anyone, especially like, I don't know, if you are like in a public Wi-Fi, right? Building those apps, when you listen, you only want to listen on these things that you absolutely need. You know, just another thing. And then I'll add that there is some other useful information, which is here. It tells you what family, right here, which is the family of the IP address. Tells you, okay, IPv4. We know that 127 is IPv4, right? If you want to listen to the, like, let's say you have an IPv6 configuration, I believe it's this, right? This is the local host version of IPv6. I might be wrong. We're gonna look it up if that's wrong. There you go. This is actually correct. 001. Now I have no clue, to be honest, how to actually browse this right here. Is it just pasting this? I don't think this will work. Exactly. So it doesn't work. I don't know how to navigate the IPv6. Let's actually look it up. Thank you, internet. It's a square bracket. You have to add a square bracket, and then you put your IPv6, and then you can connect to it. So that's how you connect to an IPv6, right? Let's see if actually 127.0.0.1 works. And this is what I expected. 127.0.0.1 doesn't work because, well, you only listen to the IPv6. You clearly listen to only the IPv6 version, right? So I wonder what localhost will do, to be honest. Will it listen to both IPv6 and IPv4? It sounds like it defaulted to IPv4, but let's find out. Wrong port. Probably it's not convenient to generate a random port every time, huh? No, I just realized that it's convenient to listen to the same port. It's just something new, guys. All right. Okay, now IPv4 is listening, but IPv6 is not. It's interesting to kind of pick apart these small things. And all right, let's do some more fancy stuff. What I'm gonna do is I am going to listen to a random port, but I'm going to listen to the loop back IPv4. And then I'm going to create a brand new server. I'm going to call it IPv6. Call it 6 here. Paste. Okay. And here I am going to listen to the one. So now I'm gonna get two different ports, right? And I'm listening on two different interfaces, right? Let's do that. So, oh, forgot the 6 here. Boop. Now I'm gonna just like listening server 2. I'm gonna server 6, call it here, and server which means like IPv4. What was gonna do now? What happens? We're experimenting, guys. We're playing here. Look at that. We got obviously two different ports. They are after the other, but just let's fix this too. Man, we know how to connect to IPv6 now, so let's do that. So now this is boom, let's open that up, and then let's boom, let's open that up. So technically both of them are working, right? But both of them are completely different servers. So now instead of saying, hey, okay, you are hitting the IPv6 server, and this guy, okay, you are hitting IPv4 server. Look at all this stuff that we're seeing here. Refresh, and now I'm gonna do this, boom, and then boom. Look at that. IPv4 server, IPv6 server. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. What if I de-randomized this thing? 8888. 8888. What do you think is gonna happen? Who can make a guess? Am I gonna get an error or not? Take your guess. No errors, guys, of course. Why? Because the uniqueness of the port is address port pair. Okay, it's not just the port, right? You're listening on the local host, so technically you can also listen on 8888 on the IPv4 private IP address 192, right? That gives you another interface. If you want to screw with someone, you can definitely do that. So let's see what happened now. Boom, open that guy up. So it's 6, hit that up. Oh, localhost is pointing. Look at that, localhost is actually pointing to IPv6. So we actually need to do boom, boom, 1. Right, we have to do 127.0.0.1 because the localhost, the DNS, is effectively pointing by default to the IPv6. You know, that's another thing you need to understand. Localhost is just a DNS label, right? I don't know if that's actually a correct thing to say, but that label has to point to the IP address. By default, it sounds like it's pointing to the IPv6, right? So technically, to be more accurate, this thing has to be 127.0.0.1. Capiche? Good stuff. Open that up. Look at that. It's a completely different server. Let's close all this tabs. So now, if I actually forced an error, let's force an error by doing this. This is a no-no, because now you're listening to this guy and you're listening in the same interface, right? So if you refresh, process exited with code 1, and we have no idea why. So now this is when we actually need to somehow capture the errors, which we didn't, by the way, right? That's why when you need dot on error effectively. And I love Visual Studio Code. Look at that. The people behind this Visual Studio Code are heroes. So we're going to do a console.loggothis. I'm going to do an error. What am I doing? Error. And I have no idea what. I think this is just a string, but it might have been an object. And we do YY. And then I go capital P. Wrong. Undo. I'm still figuring out Vim. Although I converted everything to Vim here, but still trying to learn Vim. Learn and just like force myself to, you know. I'm getting used to it, but I only know very few commands that, you know, get me up and running. But I'm no expert. Now let's go ahead and rerun this thing. and we're not getting any error. What? Nani? Server 4 listening. So we listened successfully on this guy, but oh, gonna do an error. We forgot how did I forget this? But even though we should have gotten something, right? That's odd. There you go, we got an error. Error. Listen, address in use. Address already in use. By address, they mean the pair of IP port, right? And you can get the same error if you like stop this. Boom. If you do like 0 0 0 0, which means all interfaces, and if you do the same thing here, you're gonna get the same error. And probably it's better to do an actual error, huh? So we can see it in red. See it in red. Look at that. Although 0 0 0 means all interfaces, right? But it also means that you already listened on this particular IP address, which means all interfaces. It means, sorry, I can't do that already. Someone else is listening. So yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna stop here, and let's get back to just do. Let's have this undo. Let's do this to be back to the IPv6, and this guy to be IPv4. Another refresh. Yep, let's stop here. I think it's fun to kind of understand these basic fundamentals, and it's just from one command, you know. There is so much we can scratch the surface and learn. And I don't know, I personally find it fascinating. I don't know if you do, but I just like to talk about these low-level stuff. Gonna see you in the next one. You guys stay awesome. Goodbye.